Dave, I am in shock with how cities are being changed in after COVID. I mean, I was just talking to a friend in San Francisco, and then they were telling me that people are just basically going to the suburbs. That there's a lot of homeless people just living there in San Francisco and there in Oakland. Same thing is happening in New York. 32% of the New Yorkers, I think it's something like 255 New Yorkers are leaving the city on a daily basis. Right now, if a building hosted 8,000 people, right now there's 500 people working on that building. And the same thing happening in Chicago, the same thing is happening in Houston, the same thing is happening in Dallas, the same thing is happening in Atlanta, the same thing is happening in London and many other cities around the world. I think COVID has completely changed the way that we see cities. And I think before that we know it, I mean, they're going to be just growing weed all over the place, the buildings, and they're going to be abandoned. I mean, it's just crazy what's going on, don't you think?
It's turning into The Walking Dead. I think there's a thing we can talk about with COVID, and it's a phrase that we should watch this phrase, fill the gaps. COVID is going to force people to fill the gaps in real estate, out in the countryside, fill the gaps in business, doing freelancer work, fill the gaps in the whole employment world, in the fact that you look at the employment world, you say, right, I'm not going to get a job anymore. Nobody's offering what I did before, but a number of people do need that skill set. So maybe I'll fill the gap in their company by offering to them and them and them for a lesser price, but I'll work with more people. So overall, I'll make the same kind of money that I made before, maybe even more, but I just got to work a little bit harder to maintain those relationships. I think filling the gaps is really what COVID's forcing people to have to do. But what that means is our entire, I mean, let's face it, this is so sudden. The Industrial Revolution of what, 200, 300 years ago was about getting people out of the fields into the factories. And as you built the factories, you built towns all around them. What COVID's done is the opposite. It said you can't be in a factory next to anybody because you couldn't catch this. So let's send you out to the fields to live and work online where you don't bump into people anymore. Now, when we talk later on about, Generation Alpha, they are a generation that are born out of distance because they're used to using devices to connect to each other. They will not notice anything differently apart from the fact that when they did get to hang out with their friends, they probably just don't get the chance to do that as much. It won't be so brutal for them, but it will mean that you got a little bit of a distance between what they perceive human emotion should be and what people's emotions should be when you talk to them online. As for cities, there's going to be a lot of cheap real estate of really beautiful properties that look out onto a wilderness in the center of town.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, right now, still is not affecting, but also what's happening in the suburbs is that right now the suburbs are being completely. I mean, it's the opposite. I mean, previously it was. The suburbs were inexpensive and the cities were very expensive. Right now, it's just basically moving the other direction. What's going on in the Middle East? Because of course, I mean, I am aware in Amsterdam things are not really moving that much. They are still remaining pretty much the same because of course it's a very small space. But I know that London is being affected. I know that. Paris is being affected. I know that Madrid is being affected. What's going on there in the Middle East, Dubai and other places?
To be honest with you, I honestly can't say. The reason I can't say is because I haven't really been out to have a look at it. I know from talking to people, it's very challenging. A lot of people, especially when it came to airlines, because a place like Dubai in the center of the Middle East, it's a hub for the whole world to go through. I know that India is having a massive problem, and India, for instance, is now worse than Brazil. So fingers crossed, we will see a change in that, and the change can only really come from vaccines. Thanks for watching the show. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you watch all the videos over here. There's two choices for you. Or, of course, I'm Dave Crane coming from Dubai.
And this is Ernesto Verdugo coming from Houston.
And I think we should send a message. Hold on.
What is this?
Subscribe